How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and attempt this mission, Aid Thy Neighbour. And yeah, you basically got to go along the top of the map. You're kind of going to cut over a bridge in the top corner, and follow again that waterfall up into kind of the snowy area now. Cut along the edge of the mountain. I found a way to kind of cut across to actually get to the lake, instead of going all the way down to the bottom of the map, past the train station and kind of back up. And then yeah, you got to go to the bottom of the lake, grab just a scout fuel trailer, and then kind of drive back up the lake, a bit of a dodgy, awkward path, through to the top corner where you got to drop it off at some guy's house. There's also another mission when you get there that I was able to grab, so I've not attempted that one yet, but I just wanted to actually get it on the list, so as and when I decide to. There's a goddamn professional waiting at the lamppost. He was floating earlier for some reason, I'm not really too sure why, but a loaf's got to do what a loaf's got to do. If he needs to levitate, then he probably knows what he's doing. He is a goddamn professional. So yeah, at this point I hadn't built that bridge. And to be honest, even though I have built that bridge now, I still kind of like cutting across this river. I think it's a pretty good test, pretty good challenge. And yeah, generally speaking, if you keep these rocks in the water to your right, the ones that are sticking out of the water, there is some rocks in the water that you got to bounce over in there, but they're not really that bad. Most things I've attempted bringing over have got over pretty hassle-free. That GMC, by the way, it didn't technically get stuck or anything. It was a little bit slow over there, but nothing special. It's when you get into this mud at the other side that, as you can see now, just everything. It doesn't seem to matter what truck you've got, what power to weight ratio. There is fair enough, a very few exceptions, like I suppose the Cat 745C and the Azov 420 Antarctic kind of digging a little better there, but not a lot really at all. Like, it was pretty much quicker just sticking a winch on that tree and going for it that way. And yeah, whether it's been like the Dolphin, the Voron AE, the Taiga, this thing, the GMC, it just, I mean, yesterday I was trying like a couple of areas, different missions. I tried this one a couple of times. That's why at this point the bridge wasn't built, but I did do it later yesterday. And yeah, and then I sort of, I believe then I came back to finishing off this one. The GMC, I didn't really want to go slow all the way through this mission. I mean, that's part of the reason I did that bridge one in the end, because it seemed like the most simple one-ish, where it was the chance to take the Antarctic out and actually give it a little blast, but it wasn't anything too crazy, because yeah, again, I still do like these maps, as far as like the scenery-wise, the variety. I think they're better than Imandra. Imandra was a little bit, even though it had a lot of like little nice areas, like the cliff edge, that was pretty cool. That random broken up rock bridge going over the water as well, that was pretty cool. But yeah, generally speaking, it was just a lot of snow and a lot of slowness. This map looks better, I think, got more sort of variety. I like the steep hills, I like the water challenges and all that stuff. But yeah, they just, again, I mean, that's what I've been trying to do for the last week or so, is like just rotating through different trucks I've got to try and find something that motors pretty nicely through all this kind of terrain. And the end result is like, when the game allows you to go, say, just ticking along in high range, it's nice, but there's so many patches on these maps that purposely just slow you down to absolutely nothing pretty much, that yeah, definitely getting a little sort of just a little impatient, a little bit keen to have something that flies along a bit better. So like I said, at this point I ended up trying the White Western start. I knew / know this isn't the best off-roader or anything in the game, but I also knew from driving down here previously, I attempted this with the Voron AE. Oh yeah, I originally started this with the F750. Sadly, as much as I do like the F750 for a lot of reasons, I like all the add-ons and everything you can have on it, but it always feels like, I wouldn't say anymore that the power's not there, but it's like the revs aren't fully there. It kind of feels like it's only giving you about 80% or whatever of what the F750 could do. Or again, a little bit kind of like the clutch slipping, which I know probably isn't an accurate guess at what's actually happening, but it just sort of comes off feeling like that, where you're kind of flooring it and there's not a whole lot going on until you kind of wind up to speed a little bit, and then it kind of allows you to get the full beans. But yeah, so like I said, I took the F750. I believe you'll see that nearer the end of this at some point, when I finally just gave up and I was like, sod it, I want to take something else. The Voron AE did pretty well, probably maybe a little better than this, but to be fair, at the first half of this mission, they're both pretty decent. They both got over the river, like they were leaning a bit iffy. This thing doesn't tip very easily, which is one of the reasons I like it, and it's one of the reasons I ended up bringing it for this, because a little bit further ahead with the Voron, I ended up rolling when I hit a stone, and yeah, I mean, what I should have done is brought a goddamn horse or a vehicle with me, because that would have just flipped me back and I'd have been on my way, but I was trying to remain in high gear for a chunk of this. And there is some trucks that can remain in high gear when I've got loaf behind me, like the Dolphin. The Taygar's pretty good at it as well for most things. Probably not with those custom muds on this map. But yeah, I wanted, like, you know, I could just make a video every day, me going out with Dolphin and loaf and messing around. They seem to be the best combo in the game, really, for me. So, this first half of the mission, by the way, going along the top of the map, in the end I didn't even go kind of all the way along the top and cut over the little bridge it gives you in the top corner and then double back on yourself, really, on the other side of the river. I got as far as the logging station and then just cut across the river to kind of that little yard, caravan sort of area that I just drove through. And that first half of the mission is pretty easy, it was pretty nice, pretty normal, pretty enjoyable. It was fine in the F750, the Voron AE, and this thing. This section going up here gets a little bit trollish with the rocks. Rockman definitely put a few extra hours in on this section, but to be fair, it doesn't really bother me because it's a pretty steep hill. It's got a river flowing down it, so I don't really. It still feels, yeah, within the realm of realism, I suppose, trying to climb up there. Personally, in real life, if I had that kind of situation where I had to drive up there, I would spend, I don't know, an hour just going up there on foot and rolling a lot of the rocks out of the way so they don't become a pain in the ass for the next 20 years, but it's just me. Yeah, motoring along here was when I originally rolled the Voron AE, and I could have come back in the Voron AE, but in the end I just decided, like, sod it, this thing might actually be pretty good, and it's ticking along nicely in the high range, so the Voron AE probably had a tiny bit more speed overall, but nothing too crazy. And yeah, so far this half of the mission is great. It was going pretty well. In fact, that is exactly where I rolled the Voron AE. I hit the right wheel on that rock you can see just to my right, and that flipped me over. And yeah, as I said, the first half of this mission was pretty alright. It's the second half that suddenly gets you. I was wondering, like, I never really seen this, but I must have been distracted by that sign last time I came past there. Crappy, more cold, more gold. Yeah, this was my second time cutting through here. To be fair, I probably did get beached there a bit, although this was actually pretty decent for not getting beached. When I tested it in the what's it called, Northport Mountains, like, this was pretty good. But yeah, I came through it in the F750 like hours prior to this, got bogged down pretty bad there where I've just gone through. That's why I'm sticking to the left. These little mud puddles, they look alright. I'd happily cut through them normally, but yeah, again, they make you go half a mile an hour, and there's only so much excitement that can be had out of going half a mile an hour. Especially that you just squeeze the trigger and then, yeah, just kind of sit there and wait to get to the other end. At least at this sort of speed. As I said, I rolled the Voron AE, but that's kind of fair enough. That's cool. That's part of the risk. Well, put it this way, I'd rather have one attempt, roll it, I could theoretically recover to garage, or I could have just planned ahead when I set off on the mission and brought a goddamn wholesale vehicle with me, and then I could have flipped myself back where I was. But yeah, either way, I've got that option. I could have recovered to garage and then drove back again. And the first half of the mission, like I said, had a pretty nice pace to it. Well, I mean, what are we on now? Yeah, about 9 minutes. So to get, for what I would say is over half of the map distance I've got to do. You can't really see it right now, but to my left is basically the top of the lake where I've got to go. But first, you've got to go down to the bottom of the lake and grab this bloody scout fuel trailer. And as you can see, this is where things start to get, yeah, pretty boring, pretty dull. I did, because like I said, I was here before in the F750. I was cutting across the lake. There is certain bits. You can see where it looks like smoother on the lake. They're almost like little roads you can drive down, but everywhere it looks, it's hard to explain, but those of you that have been playing this game and you've been on the lakes, you'll kind of know what I mean about. You can kind of tell which bits are going to break and which aren't. Not always, there is a few bits that sort of sneak up on you and surprise you, but generally speaking, yeah, I was cutting across the lake. I believe you'll see the best example with this White Western Star. which is part of the reason I left, or ended up doing this version of the gameplay, because when I did it in the F750, I did like 8 or 9/10 of the mission, so I could have just done this video with the F750 and took over at the end with this or something, but it probably took me, I don't know, I was probably already at 15 to 18 minutes by now with the F750. Then I tried cutting across bits of the ice and got wedged in and had to winch myself through the trees, and it was incredibly slow through here, even slower than this thing is. Yeah, the whole mission in total probably would have been about 40 minutes or something, maybe even more with the F750. And like I said, it's a shame, because I do like that. I don't take it out a hell of a lot, because it's not really got much oomph to it top end wise, but every now and then though, I do enjoy taking the F750 out. It's definitely one of the more decent vehicles that they've added since like beyond the base game. And yeah, like I said, I mean, this is essentially a road cutting along from the top of the lake to the bottom, and it's one of the worst, just slow, boring parts of the whole map. Even going up that really steep like river was quicker than this. Even cutting through an actual river was quicker. I mean, look at it, that is just ridiculous. I used to, as I said before, in fact, sorry, we'll squeeze a story. I haven't really done a little story for a while. It's not specifically a Dave story, actually, this one, but, well, he's involved. He usually is somewhere along the line. Yeah, like I said, every winter we used to go out, did it for 5 or 10 years. We'd all just buy a crappy car, or usually it was the car we just had anyway, but it was crappy, so it counted. Yeah, and it'd snow usually. The reason I sort of mention it as well, it was supposed to snow yesterday. I believe snow settled further up north in England. We didn't really get any where I am, unfortunately. But yeah, when it snowed each year, which it pretty much guaranteed did at some point, we'd just go out absolutely into the middle of nowhere. Like, the more middle of nowhere, the better. There was just anywhere between 2 to 4 or 5 of us, depending which year it was. It kind of became a bit of a tradition, so there ended up being more and more of us sort of doing it each year. But yeah, again, just go out into the middle of nowhere, go places where no other cars or vehicles, anything is driven for probably a few days. There was no tyre tracks down the roads or anything like that, just pure clean snow everywhere. And yeah, we were in cars that were mostly like 2-wheel drive, front wheel drive, just a normal car, nothing crazy. And we went all over the place. We were cutting through like dirt tracks along the edges of fields. I mean, like, best case scenario, it was like a very narrow country lane, pretty steep hills going up and down all over the place. Yeah, worst case, like I said, it was like dirt tracks along the edges of fields, sometimes through fields and all sorts. So as much as I've never really been specifically off-roading, we've done a hell of a lot of snow driving. Even when I started doing my driving lessons, because I was like, my birthday this kind of time of year, yeah, after I was 17 I started doing driving lessons, and it snowed throughout quite a lot of my driving lessons, so even doing that I was like in snow or snowing while I was doing that. So I'm pretty comfortable messing around in snow. I also, I mean, compared to someone who lives just in snow, obviously they're going to have a hell of a lot more experience. But yeah, as far as people go, like in Britain and stuff, for some reason you get like an inch of snow here and about 98% of the country just shits its pants and doesn't dare go out anywhere. I've never really understood it myself. If we had 2 foot of snow or something, fair enough, but yeah, you get like an inch and everyone panics like it's a nuclear winter settling in or something. But yeah, so I'm fine going out in the snow, and like I said, it's part of the reason where this game starts to feel unrealistic with it, because I've been out in 2-wheel drive cars going through deeper snow than this game presents, and trucks like this that are purpose built, or at least, you know, 6-wheel drive, diff locks, all the rest of it, can't even handle it. Just quickly, by the way, you can see on the lake, see where it's like the smoother, flatter bits that I was able to drive along that just didn't break through, and then you can see kind of the more, they sort of look more rough and frosty and everything. It's usually the breakable bits. That's why when I got to the end there, I couldn't really see a decent path ahead of me, so I just kind of floored it and jumped back to the edge of the lake so I can cut along the edge. But yeah, anyway, back to the driving around in snow. We got to one point where, yeah, there was a friend of ours, and he was driving a, what was it, a Renault Clio, and yeah, we were again just going around in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, no farmers are there, no police are there, and just no one's been there. It's just like places people don't go when it snows. And yeah, doing the handbrake, drifting around corners, just messing around and all that. And as we were kind of driving between points though, we'd jump onto the main road a bit, go off to somewhere else, like another village in the middle of nowhere or whatever. And yeah, we're going along the main road, and this guy who was with us, Tristan, his name is, I still, to this day, have no idea what he was thinking. We were going along a perfectly straight road. There was still snow and everything on it, but because it was a main road, it had actually been used a little bit. And we were going at a good 50-60 mile an hour, because, again, like I say, it was a main road, and it was going straight. There was big ditches either side of it as well, is the point. And yeah, we were behind him. Me and my brother Adam were in the car behind, so I had the perfect view of this. He just stuck his handbrake on and started going sideways down this road at about 50-60 mile an hour, a straight road. Like I said, big ditches either side. Yeah, started to wiggle sideways, let his handbrake off, kind of snapped back and flew into the ditch. The ditch was a 6-7 foot deep, like literally his car was gone. If you were like looking from road level, you just wouldn't see his car anymore. Wheels kind of stopped, pulled over. I remember thinking, like, what the hell was he thinking? And yeah, like I said, we used to messing around, having fun. If on the rare occasion we ever did get stuck, when a bit mad drifting around a corner and went off the side of the road and that, yeah, there was usually a couple of us. We'd have a tow rope with us, so we'd be able to pull out. Yeah, that's what she said. And yeah, we were back on our way, but for some reason, like I said, this guy, Dave, I'm sure, I think Dave was in front of them or something. Funnily enough, that it was, well, I'll tell you why it's not something Dave would do at the end. But anyway, it kind of is something that you would expect Dave to do, though. Just stick the handbrake on at 56 mile an hour and go flying off into a ditch. But yeah, suddenly we were like, ah, crap, because we are basically in the middle of nowhere. It still was a main road, but it still was about 9 o'clock at night. It had been snowing. Main road for where we were, but you're not talking like near a city centre or town or anything like that. It's a main road kind of between villages in the arse end of nowhere. And yeah, so originally we stuck the tow rope to him. We said, we'll try and pull you out the ditch, but I'll be honest, you picked just about the biggest ditch I've ever seen, so I don't know how well it's going to go. And we're trying to drag him back up the hill, but obviously because there's ditches either side and it's a straight road, it's not like we can reverse kind of perpendicular to the road. We had to reverse along the road, so he ended up kind of half getting up the ditch, but it was just scooting along, dragging along the hedge really, not really doing the paint and that many favours. But in our defence, flying into a ditch didn't really do his paint job many favours. By the way, as well, just quickly, I just passed the Evans F750. You can see where I gave up on that, and then you can see how just needlessly slow this section is. Yeah, anyway, just out of nowhere, when we'd finally given up on, like, we're not getting this out with a tow rope, considering ringing a towing company or something to come and get us out the ditch. But yeah, that was kind of against the ethos of the whole evening we're doing. Plus we're also thinking at some point the police will probably come past. If you got a cool police, they'll be fine. You could end up with some wanker though that's like, well, section 13-273 of the highway code dictates. It's like, yeah, don't need PC Buzz Killington to ruin the mood of the evening. But then fortunately, seen headlights in the distance, along comes a Land Rover, old school Land Rover Defender pulled up, and these two older women got out. I believe they're lesbians. I know this sounds like some deranged porn fantasy, but honestly it's not. And yeah, they said, do you want help getting out of the ditch? So we were like, yeah, okay, yeah, cheers. And they were like a well-oiled Formula 1 pit crew. They went and got their own tow rope out the back of this Defender, hooked it onto the front of their bumper. We already had the towing eye in the Clio, because we had already been attempting to get it out ourselves, but we were trying to get it out with a two-wheel drive car, so it really we were kind of half wheel spinning towards the ditch ourselves. Yeah, they hooked it on reverse. About 10-15 seconds later, they got him out of the ditch, got out the car, unhooked it. They said, yeah, no worries. Threw the tow rope in the back, they were gone. And yeah, like I said, just like a speedy lesbian Formula 1 pit crew of snow rescues. Just my luck though, typical. Finally neck deep in a dike, and two lesbians turn up and remove me in record time. What are the goddamn chances? I'm allowed to say that as well, by the way, because I am a lesbian, so it counts. It's the rules apparently, even though they change them every 5 goddamn minutes. Anyway, yeah, got to this point. Like I said, this last section after I got to the lake, you can see where I abandoned the F750, just because, again, that was horrifically slow. I knew it was going to be that slow all the way. I knew there wasn't going to be a hell of a lot that'd be much quicker, but I thought I'd give this a go. Yeah, got to this point. I mean, these rocks, it did fairly well over most of them, to be fair. It was just this last little section, it couldn't quite bump its way over. As someone said earlier, I do agree. This thing, if it had slightly bigger tyres mainly, but they also said raised suspension, like even more raised suspension. I mean, I wouldn't say no to it, it wouldn't really do much harm. This thing's pretty good for not tipping over, so I certainly think it could handle slightly taller suspension before it's too much of an issue. But yeah, I kind of had a few choices with this mission really. As you can see, the first half of the mission was pretty quick, had a nice pace going to it, so I sort of didn't really want to bring something like the Tatrin, because then I'd just be mostly bored for the first half of the mission. But the Tatrin would certainly be a lot better for the second half. I assume the Tatrin would motor along here pretty well. I still bet some of the super snow sections would be a bit of a troll and make it go slow, but I still think overall, I mean, it's literally just a chassis full of wheels, so it's not really going to get beached on too much, unless you get, like, if you try and send a rock down the middle. That doesn't really help the situation. Anyway, we finally got over there, winched this thing out. As you can see a minute ago, by the way, when I was trying to winch this trailer through, that little like wiggly wheel on the front of the trailer was digging into one of the rocks, and it was yeah, it was jammed in there pretty good. That's definitely what she said. And I had to kind of jiggle it around a few times, yank it out there, and then we're good to go. But as you can see now, I mean, I'm low range diffs on, but if I go in auto, it just wheel spins more. It is a shame. It's yeah, I mean, this is definitely a great game, there's no doubt. Even if I called it quits now, I've easily, would say, got my money's worth in terms of entertainment per hour. The cost per hour averaged out, this game has been pretty bloody cheap. But it is a shame that they, like I said, they kind of give with one hand and take with the other. We got some more maps and it's cool, but then just for some reason they have to then nerf the other side of it and kind of make it extra slow. And yeah, when we're talking 7 or 8 months or whatever we are into the game now, I don't know, it's just not that engaging anymore. It did actually free up a little bit further along here, as you'll see. I finally get, that's all I want. Even this speed is like, I could sort of live with it. It feels a little bit more realistic. It's when you hit, like, yeah, the super snow and just go back to absolutely nothing like this. Yeah, like I said, the one thing I have actually done is spent quite a bit of time in snow with cars, and they do better than this through snow. I've also watched plenty of videos since this game came out, just for my own curiosity. I kind of like those sort of videos anyway, of off-roading videos, and I would say 98% of the videos I see, which are not, they're just randomly selected off-roading videos that looks like, oh, that looks cool, I'll watch that. Yeah, they all perform more realistically than this game is allowing us at the minute. But like I said, I'm holding out for mods. Worst case, I'll skip that whole thing. I'll get mods with better wheels, something, just to cut out the trollishness, and then I can get on about in business. Anyway, that's the mission done though. Yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.